Ever wonder what happens when a suburban dictator in a bathrobe decides to wage war over a parking spot at 3 a.m.? That's exactly the chaos that unfolded in my quiet little neighborhood of Willow Creek, where I'd been levying peacefully for 3 years in my cozy townhouse. My name's Ethan, a software engineer who'd rather debug code than deal with drama. But peace? That went out the window 6 months ago when Margaret Hensley Meg to her friends, the enforcer, to everyone else crowned herself president of our Homeowners Association. Let me tell you, life in Willow Creek hasn't been the same since. Meg was in her mid-50s, with a sharp bob haircut that seemed to get tighter with every HOA meeting she ran. She patrolled our streets like a hawk, clutching a notebook where she scribbled every tiny infraction: a mailbox leaning slightly off-center, a kid's bike left on a lawn, or her personal obsession, parking violations. Our community's dignity lies in our shared spaces. She'd preach at meetings, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I'd sit in the back, scrolling on my phone, trying to stay in Cyble. Drama wasn't my thing. I just wanted to code, eat takeout, and sleep. But Meg? She had a knack for turning molehills into mountains. It all started last week when my cousin, Lucas, rolled into town after a long drive from Ohio. He got in late Thursday, so I told him to park in the guest spot across from my place. Big mistake. What I didn't know, because I'd been using the HOA newsletter as a coaster, was that Meg had snuck in a new rule: guest parking needed a permit requested 48 hours in advance. Buried on page 6, naturally. Friday morning, I woke up to an orange violation notice slapped on Lucas's windshield. Unauthorized vehicle subject to towing at owner's expense. It screamed, with Meg's neat handwriting scrawled below. Bylaw 23.4, amended April 15th. Rectify immediately or face penalties. I rolled my eyes, told Lucas to park in my garage's second spot, and figured that was that. She's on a power trip, I said, laughing it off. Oh, how naive I was. That evening, we got back from a day showing Lucas the city, only to find another notice, this time taped to my front door. Failure to remove unauthorized vehicle. Second violation. Due law 150 fine. I was VYD. Lucas's car was in my garage. I snapped photos provying it, then fired off a polite email to the HOA board, explaining the mix-up and asking to drop the fine. Meg's reply came in minutes, from her personal email, not the HOA's. Rules ensure community harmony. Your VY should have been registered. Fine stands. Discuss at next month's meeting. No. Dear Ethan. No signature. Just cold, hard Meg. Lucas left Sunday, and I thought the storm had passed. I was so wrong. At 3:07 a.m. Tuesday, I was yanked from sleep by what sounded like someone trying to batter down my door. Bang! 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 A shrill voice screeched my name. Heart pounding, I stumbled downstairs, phone in hand, flipping on lights. Through the peephole, there was Meg, pale blue bathrobe, hair in curlers, wielding a flashlight and a stack of papers like some deranged night watchman. I cracked the door, keeping the chain on. Meg, it's 3 a.m. What's going on? I croaked. That car is back, she snapped, eyes wild with a zeal that felt unhinged. The same unauthorized vehicle from Friday, in guest parking, no permit. I blinked, brain foggy. Lucas left Sunday. That's not his car. You're mistaken. Her voice shot up. Don't tell me I'm mistaken. Navy blue Honda CIVYC, plate JKL 792. It's breaking rules right now. The plate wasn't even close to Lucas's. Meg, that's not my cousin's car. I don't know whose it is. It's not my problem. She shoved a paper through the gap. Third violation. Due law 300 fine. We'll discuss your disregard for standards at the next meeting. I took a deep breath, clinging to calm. Meg, listen. Lucas is gone. That car's someone else's. I'm not responsible for every VY cider here. And it's 3 a.m. This is insane. Her eyes narrowed. Rules don't sleep, and neither does enforcement. Sign this violation acknowledgement. I shook my head. I'm not signing anything. Leave my property, or I'm calling the cops. I started to shut the door, but she jammed her foot in. You're being recorded refusing to comply, she hissed, while VYing her phone. This is EVY Denke for proceedings against you. That's when I heard another door creak open. My neighbor, Sarah, a sharp-as-a-tack attorney, stepped onto her porch in pajamas, looking worried. Everything okay, Ethan? I heard shouting. Before I could answer, Meg whirled. Go back inside. This is HOA business. Big mistake. Sarah crossed her arms, now wide awake. Ma'am, are you aware that banging on doors at this hour could be harassment and disturbing the peace? She said coolly. Meg faltered, then doubled down. I'm conducting official business. Interference means fines for you too. I seized the moment to slam and lock my door. Through the window, I watched Meg storm across the street, pounding on another door, likely the Honda's actual owner. That's when I dialed 911. I need to report a disturbance, I whispered, eyeing Meg's rampage. The HOA president is banging on doors at 3 a.m. over parking and won't leave. The dispatcher was calm. Officers are coming. Stay inside. Don't engage. Minutes later, 2 police cruisers rolled in, their lights painting the street red and blue. Meg had woken at least 3 more neighbors, who now stood outside in robes and slippers, looking pissed. The cops approached Meg, who launched into a tirade about her authority. I couldn't hear it all, but her arms flailed wildly. When an officer tried to steer her away from a doorstep, she yanked her arm back. More neighbors emerged, drawn by the spectacle. I threw on a jacket and stepped out just as Meg shrieked. I'm the elected president of this association. I can enforce rules whenever I deem necessary. The older cop, a sergeant, stayed calm but firm. Ma'am, you can't disturb people at this hour. Residents asked you to leave their property. That's trespassing. Go home now. Meg's voice hit a pitch that could have shattered windows. Outrageous. That car has no permit. And these residents are violating noise ordinances. The cops exchanged a glance. The sergeant tried again. Lower your voice, ma'am. But Meg screamed. I won't be silenced in my duties. And jabbed a finger at his chest. That was the line. In seconds, she was cuffed, the officer reciting her Miranda rights as her face froze in shock, like she just realized HOA bylaws don't trump actual laws. As they led her to the cruiser, she locked eyes with me, venom in her gaze. This is your fault, Ethan. My lawyer will ruin you. The board will expel you. I just stood there, heart racing, as the car drove off. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Meg faced charges for disturbing the peace, trespassing, and resisting an officer. Doorbell footage from half the block showed her midnight crusade, spreading like gossip at a barbecue. An emergency HOA meeting was called, and the VYC president, Tom, a quiet accountant who'd always cowered under Meg, finally stepped up. The board booted her unanimously and ordered an audit of HOA finances. Turns out, Meg had been playing favorites, ignoring violations by her buddies while targeting people she disliked like me. Worse, she'd funneled HOA funds into community monitoring equipment, aka surveillance cameras aimed at problem homes, including mine. Creepy doesn't cover it. 3 weeks later, I sat in the courthouse's back row, watching Meg, now in a prim navy suit instead of her bathrobe, face the judge. Her lawyer had swung a plea deal, but the judge wasn't gentle. Mrs. Hensley, your HOA rule grants no legal right to harass residents at 3 a.m. Do you understand? Meg's voice was a whisper. Yes, Your Honor. He pressed on. And you know HOA bylaws don't override municipal laws or citizens' right to peace? Another faint. Yes, Your Honor. The judge sighed. I'm accepting the plea. You'll pay a due law $2,500 fine, serve 100 hours of community service outside this neighborhood and abide by a restraining order against approaching complainants' homes. Violate this, and it's 90 days in jail. Clear? Meg nodded, pale as a ghost. Then came the kicker. This court recommends anger management counseling, the judge said, voice like steel. Escalating this over a parking spot shows a troubling lack of perspective. His gavel hit, and Meg's shoulders slumped, the mighty enforcer crumbling. She glanced back, her eyes burning with hatred as they met mine. I didn't flinch. Willow Creek's quieter now, but the scars linger. Meg's gone from tyrant to pariah, and the HOA's under new management. Me? I'm just glad to code in peace again. But every time I see a guest car parked across the street, I check the clock. Just in case it's 3 a.m.